tu peux enlever ton. C'est beaucoup plus joli, ça.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and welcome to the Swiss Pavilion. My name is Dante Larini and I am project manager here at the Swiss Pavilion and in charge of Swissnex. Swissnex is an agency of the Swiss government to promote Swiss education, research and innovation abroad and connect it with equivalents from the entire world. And so today we are based here at the Swiss Pavilion and we're connecting Switzerland with the UAE, one of innovation's most advanced hotspots in terms of innovation, and also companies from the entire world, including colleagues from Hungary, Slovakia, and Estonia, which we're very pleased to receive today. We're going to talk about the infrastructures, new infrastructures in terms of digital urban infrastructures. How can we develop cities to host the new technologies we're going to mention? How can we make sure that they are appropriate to receive them? And today we are going to have the pleasure of receiving Professor Matthias Finger from the IGLUS Center of the EPFL, who is a world-renowned center for the analysis of urban infrastructures. So without further ado, I'd like to call on Professor Matthias Finger to the stage. Professor.
Thank you. No, I don't need the mic. Okay. I have my own mic. Okay. Thank you. Let's just leave it here. Okay. Thank you, Dante, for introducing me, for hosting us. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We have 1.5 hours, a little bit more, depending on the discussion. And we hope it will be an interesting discussion. We have a panel of speakers, whom I will introduce. But first, I wanted to show 2 slides. Okay. So to introduce the panel. So Dante already mentioned, we are, I was a professor at Federal Institute of Technology. And you will immediately understand I'm not an engineer. I'm a political scientist, and I was always interested in the relationship between technology and governance and the way technology can be optimally used. And so we have a little campus here in the Middle East, and we have, you cannot see, the pointer doesn't show anything. There is this logo of IGLUS, and Umut is here. He's the manager of IGLUS. It stands for Innovative Governance of Large Urban Systems. And just by way of introducing the panel, I wanted to basically say a few words. We look at cities as complex, dynamic, socio-technical systems. Basically we look at technology and actors who use technology. There is a lot of actors around, don't look in there, who all influence financiers and city government and national government and companies and utilities. And, cities, these urban systems come under pressure. And basically, they come under pressure to become more efficient. They come under pressure to become more resilient. And I think the more recent term is and more sustainable, and the more recent term is really resilience, okay? And I think the systemic approach is a good way of looking at these things. But of course, this is not a goal in itself. So we basically look at a series of urban infrastructure systems. You can look at them separately, but of course they're all interrelated. Today we talk about transport, mobility, logistics, but energy is very much tied to it. And also building and housing defines how mobility works. And digitalization, you will not find it here because it's everywhere. It's a pervasive technology that covers every single infrastructure. So ultimately we look at the performance of these systems, but even the performance is not a goal in itself. What really is important is the performance of the cities themselves in terms of quality of life, of competitiveness to attract business. And so, you know, I mean, it's a little bit more fuzzy to measure, but ultimately this is what counts and what attracts the actors to the city or not, and what empowers the city. So that's the framework. We talk today mostly, and I think the panel is mostly going to be about transport, logistics, mobility, and the efficiency question, thanks to digitalization. Okay, and so my last slide, but I'm not going to comment if this would move forward. It doesn't. Can you move it? Okay, so you know there is a huge potential of efficiency in all the urban infrastructure systems. And what I have tried to do, but I'm not going to explain, but there are, of course, different dimensions of efficiency. End-to-end efficiency, I'm only going to the first one. End-to-end efficiency, the logistics chain efficiency, where digitalization really can improve a more coordinated flow of goods and people. And then the last one, I call this deep efficiency, the demand side management, system efficiency, whereby you articulate the capacity of the infrastructure with the usage of the infrastructure. And so I think there is huge efficiency, but this is just from a book we published about infrastructure and urban and digitalization. And I think, so that can be, we can look into all these details, but my 2 points here is that the efficiency potential of the technologies can only be reached with proper governance. And by governments, we really mean all the different actors that are involved, not government. Government is just one of the actors, okay? And governance itself can be enhanced thanks to digitalization. And I think that's the beauty of digitalization. It's not just the technology, it's really a coordination tool that helps coordinate technology and institutions. So having set the stage with this, I want to introduce our 5 speakers. Each of the speakers has, we have agreed, 7-8 minutes of presentation, and then we will open up, we will sit around, we will open for discussion. We hope that you ask interesting questions and that we have a good discussion from here. Our first speaker, I will not introduce after. Separately, Dr. Yves Corrodi. He will present himself, the project Cargo Souterrain. He's actually an alumni of our IGLUS program, and you know, works at Zurich Airport. Then Manjunath is from Fairtiq, and you will explain also what this is, a Swiss company in mobility, but we already discussed, maybe Switzerland not the right place for that company. Then Professor Manzoor Khan from United Arab Emirates University. We have a collaboration going in terms of mobility here. And then Jaideep Dhanoa from FENIX, and you will also explain what exactly you're doing in micromobility. And then we are very lucky to have Raimond Tamm, the deputy mayor of Tartu city, which is one, you will say that Tartu, you know, there is I think there is a debate between Tallinn and Tartu, but from Estonia, which is the forerunner of, you know, digital, at least when I was involved, e-government was the big thing 15, 20 years ago. And Estonia was already there on the map at that time. So we're very fortunate to have you here. I'll give the floor immediately to Yves, and you can start explaining to us what Cargo Souterrain is.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to show and present Cargo Sutra. It's a large-scale infrastructure project in Switzerland. I'm from Zurich. I'm working with the Zurich International Airport, and we invested into that project. Yeah, we might watch the video first.
The population and economy are growing, and so too is the volume of goods that needs to be transported in Switzerland. The government forecasts growth of 37% in 30 years, meaning that our transport network will soon be stretched to its limits, something that will be felt by everyone. Today we can decide whether we want to sit stuck in the shadow of trucks in the future, or whether to do something about it. We need to decide whether we are going to transport ever-increasing numbers of ever smaller shipping units in the traditional way, or whether a pollution-free, quieter, and for the most part underground solution would be preferable. We have the choice. Should we carry on with micro-distribution as we have been doing? Or do we want to use intelligent city logistics to see a tangible improvement? Will the future require us to build over more and more green spaces? Or could we perhaps relieve the strain on existing industrial areas? Shall we say yes to sustainability? And wouldn't it be great if instead of spending taxpayers' money for the project, money would actually be invested in our country? With Cargo Souterrain, we have developed a solution from which the whole of Switzerland will benefit. With an anticipated reduction in urban delivery traffic of up to 30%, the rural community will benefit from less traffic on the roads and improved connections for urgent deliveries. Faced with the predicted growth, we have three options to choose from. We can wait and see, further expand the transport network, or commit to innovation. Our decision is clear. Cargo Souterrain.
So, Cargo Sutra is actually French, means underground logistics. And as you saw,
hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. How are you? That's probably the most loaded question you could ask somebody in the last 2 years.
This is not part of the video. Okay. So we want to build a tunnel. And it could look like this. So you have industrial locations, a lot of warehouses. You bring the goods underground. We assume about 50 meters. It's varying, of course, depending on the geology. You transport it over some distances, bring it to the city center, and distribute it inside the city center. On the way, you have a tunnel. Inside the tunnel, you see at the bottom of the illustration 3 lines. One goes from the industrial location to the city logistics, the other one the other way around, and then there is an idle line in between, which is colored white. This idle line is very important because we can stop their autonomous vehicles. We can group them according to the need. And what we actually do is that one of these green dots is an autonomous vehicle with 2 international pallets or 2 Euro pallets, transporting, waiting maybe on some other goods from other hubs, combining them and put them overground at the exactly right time when the feeder distribution will be. This is the final goal. So you can see more or less the land of Switzerland. It's above the Alps. It's the north side of the Alps. Going from Geneva to St. Gallen, from Basel to Lucerne. So this would be the end situation, and now we focus on the first track, which will be from Herking a little bit to Zurich. Zurich, probably everybody know, but Herking-Niederbrock is not so famous, but there are a lot of distribution centers in Switzerland. So there's, for example, the Swiss Post, there are the retailers for gastronomy and for food. There are large-scale distributing cargo companies. They are all located there. And the motorway A1 is a challenge on specific times of the day. So this would be the final goal. And the first track is 70 kilometers. The benefit of it, if you think it at the city side, in the video it was mentioned that we can reduce the driving with about 30%, also noise will be reduced. You can think of if A, B, C, D are independent distributing cargo companies, they're coming from the more or less the countryside, going into the city at the specific street, number 3. The distributor B come from another rural area, going to the same street, going to number 5. So the goods, of course, these trucks are fully loaded and they are very efficient in their own way, but at the end, they are much more ton per kilometer. They are driven around in the city. And with our approach, we can provide a more congregated and collaborative solution to it. If you think of that the participants of the existing cargo companies can be there as well. So they can also join our network and make the final mile. Also, currently we are strongly focusing on the hub locations inside the city. It's, I think it's a challenge all major cities in Europe have, that the space is very limited. So we're really fighting for these spaces and try to share them among our distributors. So who is behind this project? It's of course a very large project, and I think this is the strongest slide in this short presentation. All these are companies, so the project is privately financed. You can see the Flughafen Zurich or Zurich Airport on the second line, but you can see that there are distributing companies like DSF, really large scale. BKW has a very important utility in Switzerland. The Swiss Post, Coop and Migros as the two largest food distributor within our country. Construction companies, consulting companies, all of them are large scale. And it's not only that these companies want to invest into their project for a revenue, they also want to participate with their value chain. So they have a specific interest that this project will be realized and is privately financed. So I think this is a very strong statement from the Swiss industry. Finance. So far, we spent about 70 million Swiss francs. Last year was a very important year for us. By the end of the last year, in December, we had the two national chambers, so the Nationalrat and Ständerat decided that they will give us a specific law for this project, which allows us planning security. And we assume that this law will be in charge by mid of this year. And related to that, we have granted 100 million Swiss francs for the permit, construction permit, for the research and development, as well as for the planning. The first track should be started the construction should be started in 2026. We want to finish it by 2031, and then we stepwise enlarge our network. Thank you very much.
Just leave it there. And I think Manjunath is next, please.
Thank you so much for inviting me over here. And yeah, so here I'm here to represent Fairtiq. So Fairtiq, in short, is a public transportation ticketing smart mobile application. So to give you a brief history of how Fairtiq started, if any of you would have traveled in Switzerland, the process of purchasing ticket is so cumbersome. It's like zones, the machines. You have to search the machines and go to the machines. Then you have to put the coins, and then you get off in one zone, then you get into another zone. Then again you have to search. So FETIC was basically started to solve this one simple problem for the consumers, is like to allow them to travel seamlessly in the mode of public transport that they want to go. If you want to go in a tram, if you want to go in a train, if you want to take a cable car, you shouldn't worry really about ticketing, right? But at the other end, it was also, sorry about that. Yeah, on the other end, we also had to cater to the needs of the public transport providers, right? Because currently they're spending a lot of money in selling the tickets. So like each machine that they install in a public transit stop would cost them at least 25,000 francs. The maintenance and the paper, so much of issues. So we wanted to be a platform where for consumers it's a seamless way of traveling or using a public transit, and for operators it's a low cost option to sell your tickets. And that's how Fairtiq was started. So to give you a brief of how our app works, all the user has to do is open his mobile app, start, get into public transit, get down, get into another mode, get down, and at the end of the your journey, you don't even need to stop right now. So automatically we have something called as a smart stop feature. So automatically our app identifies your entire journey and the legs in which the mode of public transport that you have taken, and it takes the money from your wallet or account that you have registered with us. So that's so seamless, right, at the fundamental level. And for operators, we give them the most important thing is to understand the user. So far, the only interaction that mostly happens between an operator and a public transit user is ticketing, right? So once you purchase your ticket, you finish your journey, that's it. Your public transport operator does not know who, why are you using public transit, or when are you going to next use it. So we give them that data. It's like so that you can design your entire public transit operation, keeping your customers in the center, not just randomly. And that also analytics tools for decision making, and most importantly the business travel solution, and also the marketing. So these are some of the things that we are trying to provide to public transit operators, and for users the benefit of seamless traveling. So coming to urban mobility, right? So we always think, it's a if you stand in a central station in any place, you see people moving all around the place. It's just it appears random, right? But there are patterns to every random person who's crossing that station. So what we try to do is identify the one most frequent user. So the whole example is like people who take public transit for one simple reason, going to work. So this is a major chunk of people who regularly use public transit, right? So in their journey, so it's most of the people won't have a public transit from their home to office. So they will have to walk, take a bus, then probably take a metro, then take another bus, or probably take an e-bike. So how will Fairtiq solve the journey of this simple one person who repeatedly travels for work? So as I was telling you, at the step 1, we simplify ticketing. And at the step 2, we gamify the entire process of traveling, right? So public transportation in Switzerland is very nice. Because of the whole environment and other stuff. But if you go to other countries, public transport is a pain. Like from the place where I come, public transport is more of a punishment than a pleasure, right? So how do we solve the problem of these people? Like ticketing is not the problem for them. It's like, for me personally, I grew up where my parents used to punish me, like, you have to take public transport if you don't get good marks. So that's also, how do you make these people travel in public transport? Like gamify, make it more interesting when they're sitting inside their bus or a train. They have something to do. So that's what we are trying to do in terms of, and then the latest concept of being sustainable, where how much CO2 you save by using a public transport for an entire month, or how much, and compete between two companies, teams, or create your own groups. That's all about, gamifying public transit. And the most important is incentivizing users, right? So for a tourist, if you randomly visit a city, you would probably don't mind taking a cab or a public transit, whatever the mode. You want to reach to your destination as soon as possible because the whole interest is to see the destination. But if you're an office goer or a university goer every day, the cost becomes your major decision maker, right? So for them, you need incentivizing directly to the benefit to the user actually helps them to make the decision easier for them to use it again and again and again. So that's where the third point, where we help public transit agencies to incentivize the regular users. So far, at least most of the public transit agencies across the globe don't have this data of who the users are and how do I incentivize, how do I put a money directly into user's account so that he can use that in his next transit journey, like the way Uber or other cab aggregators are doing. So this is the biggest thing we give it to the public transit operators. And the fourth part is delighting users. So we have incentivized them, we have gamified their entire process, but users always want more. So that's where we are, providing even more, like if you're a customized business travel solution. So for example, if you're a company, like we have tied up with Hilti, Rolex, Mercedes-Benz. So in Switzerland, if you buy a Mercedes-Benz, you get a public transport credit, which you can use over the entire year. So, and this actually helps, pushing public transit, not from a public transport operator side or not from just as a service provider side, but also companies, also universities. So there is everybody who's pushing the user to use a public transport agency. And finally, the most important is like you have to optimize operations. So that way, we make sure the public transit agencies get enough data around their users and make it a continuous improvement rather than one-time effort. All the marketing, incentivizing, gamifying is not just one-time effort. It should be an ongoing effort. So that's where we provide enough dashboards for the public transit agencies so that they can actually have a regular connect with their users and start designing their entire public transit ecosystem around their users. And that's what we have been doing in Fairtiq, and now we are expanding across Middle East and India, where the problems are different, but the solutions, the technology that we've used to solve a problem in Switzerland is the same technology we're going to use to solve the problem in India. However, the problem is totally different, but the technology is going to help us to deliver that. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Manjunath. Manzoor is next. We'll just go and then
Yeah, that's fine. So thanks a lot for the invitation. I'll be, after listening to the other speakers, is this good enough? Okay. Yeah, maybe this is the problem. Yeah. So I'll be focusing more on technical perspective of more the city mobility and more like complex urban mobility, but connected to what we know a lot these days, this autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles. I'll talk about the technical perspective and also the challenges based on my experiments, based on my experience of working with some large-scale projects in the European Union, and also some of the initiatives that we are doing here. So this is our campus, and this is one of the playgrounds for our experiments of autonomous driving. And we are going to work on different mobility use cases. Of course, you have smart mobility, green mobility. In the end, all boils down to road efficiency, traffic efficiency, and road safety. So the whole idea of autonomous vehicles or autonomous driving, which can then be translated into autonomous and connected mobility or smart mobility, which will then help achieve all those objectives which we have heard and similar objectives. So the highest level of autonomy in autonomous vehicle, which is known as level 5, has not been achieved, and I'm not sure how soon can we achieve it. Of course, there are many promises which you may have been hearing. But one thing that we do agree with most of the stakeholders from around the globe is it's not about the intelligent vehicles anymore. It's about the intelligent environment also. So there is to be something more intelligent from the environment side, which pushes more the optimal decision making at the vehicle side, because we are talking about the complex urban environment. I'll give you an example. We did one project in Berlin, and we had to make a road smart, which I'll show you here, and it had 2 roundabouts. I don't know if you've been to Brandenburger Tor. So just at the end of the Ernst-Reuter-Platz, there is this roundabout, 5 ins, 5 outs, 3-lane roads. I stayed there for more than 10 years on that roundabout. Believe you me, I tried my level best to avoid that roundabout myself, because I could not. It was impossible. And what we are saying is that an autonomous vehicle in the mixed traffic or itself should carry out all those operations on its own. So that's really a big task that we are asking from an autonomous vehicle. That's why this is this experiment, one of the experiments that we did. I hope it runs. So we had this vehicle, and this is this road which we had made smart, so to say, by deploying different types of sensors. And this is the claim that our autonomous vehicle cannot see behind the truck. And we want this vehicle to do everything. So an autonomous vehicle on its own, doing everything, is a big thing that we are asking from it. So that's why there should be intelligent environment. So those are some of, and this I've put here to highlight one thing, that similar activities are going around the globe, and these are some of the highlights where I have been the part or have been leading these projects. Like the first on the top is this the smart road that I just discussed in Berlin, and then there are these other roads and corridors across different European countries, China, South Korea, where we started looking into different challenges of autonomous driving and mobility. On one hand, we are saying that the smart environment is needed for autonomous driving. Of course, Germany, for instance, Switzerland, or other countries, they come up with a smart environment. Everything fine, the objectives of level 5 autonomous driving to a greater extent achieved. But what if your vehicle crosses over the border to another country? Do you have the right infrastructure for this autonomous vehicle? Will it function as it should? So it's not a local solution that we're looking into. It should be the global solution. So if we want something, it's not one stakeholder solution, it's multiple stakeholder solution. I'll be talking about that later. Those are some of the partners who we have been working with. They are working in these areas, but those are some of the examples. Just a quick highlight of how did we do those experiments over there. So what you see is down, this is the road, which is just 4 kilometers. And I literally did not put those sensors or the icons for the sensors to make it beautiful, but those were the sensors, and they are over-exaggerated because we needed to do experiments. Of course, instead one sensor we needed to put more. But to digitize an environment, you really need to put infrastructure on the environment. The thing is it possible? If yes, are we going to reinvent or redo the cities? We have the existing infrastructure. And I can share the experience, because this road, to just dig a hole in this road, we needed to wait for months just for the permission to do that. Forget about doing so. So there are a lot of hardships. Of course, easy to say than done. So those are some of the vehicles that we work together with the different partners. I'll skip those details. This is just an idea of if we need to create, if we need to create the ecosystem, so I'll just skip those things. Those are the infrastructure that I'm talking about, that the extra infrastructure is needed at the roadside, at the vehicle. I'm leaving these details, but this is what is the infrastructure needed for autonomous vehicle to be supported. At the UAU, we are doing the same experiments, but evolved version of that. We are creating the smart roads. All those blue ones would be our smart roads for different autonomous vehicle and mobility experiments. These are some of the experiments that we did around Europe, and we had something like smart light, which detects the object and follows the object. The experiment is here. I hope you see the video, but you did not. Anyways, so it detects the object, it follows the object, and then it notifies the autonomous vehicle that, and this was to avoid an accident like what you saw in the Uber accident around those days. This was an experiment that, this is the roundabout that I was talking about. We did an experiment with T-systems over there. So we did some, we deployed infrastructure there, the sensors, we counted the number of vehicles, ins and outs. We applied some machine learning. Of course, the details can be discussed if needed. But we wanted to achieve the traffic efficiency, and to our surprise, with some solution of adapting the traffic light dynamically, the efficiency of around 20% was achieved on average over this traffic light. But as I said, it's not about one stakeholder solution. There are different stakeholders. It's not about OEM who will create the solution. It's the mobile network operator, it's the city authorities, it's the citizens, it's the government. They are all the stakeholders, and this is how they are interconnected with each other. If my autonomous vehicle gets an accident and it is dependent on the communication provided by the T-systems, who is responsible, Mercedes or T-systems? So, or city authorities, all those data governance issues and all those are the problems. I'll wind up here, but I'll be happy to answer any questions just because of the limited time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manzoor.
Thank you.
Very good. I think we'll come back to the discussion. Jaideep. Okay. Other form of mobility. I think this is Yves.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation. I think I'm going to learn a lot today from our esteemed panel. I'm already learning a lot. Talking about cargo, public transit, autonomy, digitalization. All these forms of mobility. How do they all fit together? So we're FENIX. We're the leading electric mobility and deliveries platform in the Middle East. We're headquartered here in Dubai. If you look at the slide, that is Dubai, right, with our different services. Our mission is to unleash urban potential and propel communities forward. So the idea is, what is the core objective of mobility? It's to get people to a destination so they can do something. So I can get to work, so I can get to school, so I can get home and take care of my family, right? And we want to make it more affordable and accessible for everyone so we can all do what we're meant to do. Because what is the potential of the city? It's the potential of the people who live in the city. And mobility is a limiter or an enabler for that potential. We want to unleash it and let everyone do what they're meant to do. So quickly about me, I guess mobility is my third career, right? I did go to high school here in Dubai. I moved here in '97, so I've seen the city mature over the years on and off. I then spent several years in media with the Indian Premier League, Walt Disney Company, and then I was a consultant with McKinsey in the Bay Area, working with a bunch of technology companies. I got into mobility back in 2016. I joined Careem. It was a young upstart back then. I was leading growth and strategy for the company. Very fortunate. I got to participate in that success story. I then moved to Singapore, and I joined another upstart, and Grab in their ventures team ended up focusing on what we now call micromobility when it really took off in Asia. I then moved back to Dubai. I felt this is a region, the Middle East, that needs alternatives to the car, right? And needs more choice. And I've been very fortunate to work closely with several government partners to introduce this concept to the region with a company called Zurich. We were also in Switzerland, by the way. We worked closely with Swiss Rail, SBB, and in Europe. And I was leading the Middle East business before starting FENIX. So with FENIX, we are a hyper-local, integrated e-mobility and deliveries platform, right? Starting with electric mobility, we offer a range of products, different vehicle types, e-scooters, e-bikes, e-mopeds, maybe e-pods, EV pods, right? And different business models. We have shared vehicles, which you rent from point A to point B, get off the metro, ride it to the office, 5 minutes, 5 dirhams, right? We also have private subscription vehicles where you get your own scooter, like Netflix, on a monthly subscription, pause, cancel anytime, with free insurance and maintenance and a smart app. Basically, we want to give choice to the consumers so you can find the right product for you for different use cases, different environments. And we're using these electric vehicles now for ultra-fast deliveries, right? So we talked about cargo. You've shared a very fascinating vision for what can happen in Switzerland. We're also doing our own delivery service here in the Middle East, using light electric vehicles for convenience items in 10 minutes with no minimum order, no delivery fee, and we're extending this for new services. And all of this is supported by a wallet platform, which we just announced actually earlier this week, called FENIX Pay. Basically, another form of urban potential is financial inclusion. And a lot of people, the people who most need these solutions are the lowest income. Right? They're the ones that have the highest cost. It's a regressive tax, actually, mobility, where the less you make, the more you pay as a percentage of your income and as a share of time, right? If I'm spending 2 hours a day commuting and someone else is spending 10 minutes, right, that's a tax on me. I could be earning, I could be learning, I could be nurturing, right? I could be consuming. So if I don't have a credit card, I'm out of luck. I can't use these products, right? So that's why we invest in payments as well. That's a different topic. So now some perspective, right? Our view is, cars are expensive because they're very inefficient, right? They're beautiful vehicles. They give you a lot of freedom to do many different use cases. It's a bundle of use cases, but most of the usage, it's overqualified for, right? 70% of the time, it's one passenger, right? 50% of the time, it's short distance. So why do we have 2,000 kgs of metal moving 100 kgs of passenger? What are we paying for, right? We're paying to move the car, right? And many cases with a private chauffeur, right?
Didn't even talk about the space they are using.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the space, right, that they're using, right? Good segue, right? So when we're planning our cities, right, we've got to shift our mindset away from, car-centric design, how do we move the most cars, to people-centric design. How do we move the most people? Because cars don't move a lot of people. You can see on this slide, far left, right? Most of the car is empty, and then there's space between the cars, right? So you're not moving a lot of people in a car lane, right? And the solution is not, let's build more car lanes, right? That just gets clogged up further, and there's limitation on how much space you can take up in the city, right? The solution is let's make public transit more accessible, because that's the most efficient way to move people, right? You move like 10 times the amount of people if you can squeeze together in a train or in a bus than you can in a car lane, right? And the challenge is, public transit is the stations aren't everywhere, right? You need to address this first and last mile to get to public transit. That's where micromobility plays a role as a feeder, right, to an integrated multimodal network. And of course, for short distance trips, you don't need a car either. And let's not talk about parking. Right? Each car on average has 8 parking spots, right, in a city. So think about that waste, right? One person, 8 car parking spots. If you replaced it with scooter parking, you'd fit 30 shared scooters in the same space, right? That 30 times, and those are shared, used by 100 people, right? So it's an 800 to 1 ratio. So effectively, I mean, sustainable urban planning, like that is what micromobility is all about, right? We talk about this transportation pyramid, right? Especially here in the Middle East, right? Today it's very, very car-centric because it's the only viable solution to get around. You need to own a car to get everywhere you need to go. And so that's why, public transit's a small share, shared mobility is also a small share, and walking is a very tiny share, right? The future, what we should be aspiring for is less cars, more shared vehicles, much more public transit, and even more, pedestrian and bikes, because that is what enables the whole network. That's what makes public transit viable. That's what gives us back our space for more greenery and gardens, etc. Right? And by the way, it's also the most effective way to spend our government money on infrastructure. Right? That is actually a public subsidy that we're all paying for. The roads aren't free. We're paying for it through taxes. Right? So let's spend that money more effectively. And we've seen this already happen. Right? This is not an impossible dream. Right? You can see some global examples where the transportation pyramid has been inverted. Right? In Europe, in Asia, and elsewhere, car share is maybe 30%. Public transit, walking, makes up 70%. So it's possible. It just takes the courage, right, to take away space from the car and give it to other modes, right? That's what Sheikh Mo says. Build it and they will come, right? So build it for other modes and people will use it. So that's really what we're about, right? Offering the right size for the right ride, giving choice to consumers, addressing different use cases, segments, infrastructure, environments, whether it's a shared scooter, a private scooter, an e-bike, a moped, for e-commerce, etc. Would love to share more and answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks, Jaideep. And I think it's the right handover to Raimond, Deputy Mayor of the city of Tartu. There was a call to policymakers.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. So I really enjoyed the previous speakers also because it's showing clearly that we have so much wonderful technology existing or in the pipeline. And basically, it's not anymore up to the technology to solve different problems because we have more and more technological solutions, but basically we have most of the needed ones already existing. So for the city point of view, it's becoming more and more complicated how to choose between different technologies which are existing because quite many are addressed actually to different solutions and solving basically the same problems. So thank you so much for the opportunity being here. I represent Estonia. Estonia is well known as a country with wonderful electronic services, with high digitalization rate in case of public services. So mainly Estonia is well known because of the state level services what we are offering. But we are also doing a lot of things at the local level, at the city level. And that's something that people do not know that much yet. But I'm here to speak a bit about what we are doing in Tartu. Tartu is actually the second largest city in Estonia. So we have capital city Tallinn, and Tartu is the second largest. And we are also well known as a university city. The University of Tartu has been existing since 1632. And that's why also we have a lot of wonderful, bright-minded young people who are willing to develop new technologies. And we are known for our startups also. We have wonderful ecosystem for developing of startups. And also in case of Estonia, in case of urban mobility, we have more and more solutions developed. And we, as cities, we are really proud to be open for the innovation, because having technology is one side of the story, but to implement the technology, that's the other one, because the society is mainly earning if the solutions are implemented, not if they are worked out, but if they are implemented. And that's really up to the innovation culture. And in case of Estonia, as we have been in digitalization for a long time, we started with the public services more than 20 years ago. So it's a long, long time. And people are not afraid of digital services. People are not afraid of innovation. And that's giving us a really good basis for different developments. And we are quite eager and quick to implement different new technological solutions. That's exactly what's happening also in Tartu. And we are even saying that we are open innovation platforms, that companies are welcome to really come and implement their solutions hand in hand with the city. And for the local companies, we are also offering the test bed possibilities, that if you are working the services out hand in hand with the local government, it's giving you extra possibilities. For example, we used to test hands-free public transportation ticketing system, which was called Jiffy. And we offered from the city side opportunity for 2,500 people to be the living lab and to test the service. And actually, they didn't have to pay for public transportation during the testing period. And finally, the company was really happy because they received the feedback what they were expecting, because having such a kind of huge living lab, 2,500 people in Estonia, it's quite a lot of people. Maybe not in India, but I heard that in India you had like 5 million public transportation user in a certain city, and public transportation is not the most important mode of transportation in Indian cities also, I understand. Yeah, so just to speak a bit about these concrete solutions, what we have, or some specific solutions. So, of course, from the city government point of view, we have two reasons actually to digitalize our services. First one is to increase the internal efficiency for the city governments, for the governance. And the second one is to offer better services for our citizens. I think both of them are important. And sometimes, of course, when you are increasing the internal efficiency, you are offering also better services to the citizens. So, for example, in public transportation, we might have this kind of win-win solutions like a real-time information system, which is giving very good feedback for the city, how buses are actually keeping in schedule. And it's also giving very good information to the citizens. So if you're trying to develop this kind of digitalization, then it's giving you win-win situation in case of services and in case of internal efficiency also. Then also we have a wonderful ticketing system or payment system for public transportation. For example, if you're a tourist, you might enter any of our buses. We have the validators. You can just use your contactless payment, whatever you have, the watch or you have a card or whatever. You can go to certain validator, just beep, and you have paid for the transportation. You don't need any local card or solution, whatever. You don't need to download any app, whatever. So it's very easy because you have to make the services more and more comfortable to use. And it's even smarter system. When you are beeping 3 times a day, it considers that you have bought actually the daily ticket. So you don't need to identify yourself, but it's very easy to actually consume the service. And in case of public transportation, what is also really important, it's collection of data. I really highlight collection of data because in case of development of many services, data is actually the basics. You need to collect data or you need to have access to data. And that's also something that we have very strong point in Estonia because we have connections to different info systems. It's really great opportunity to build data layers on the top of each other. And you can really analyze data. We have companies who are offering the solutions to analyze data, like, for example, company Positium, which we worked with in case of redesigning of our public transportation line network. So network was a little bit old school already. So we decided that we will go for data-based development of public transportation network. So we had the public procurement, and local company Positium was the best offering company. So they had, for the first, mobile positioning data. That was one of the most important data sets. You know what is mobile positioning data is. The mobile phones are leaving tracks in the city, so you can basically see how mobile phones are moving around in the cities. That's giving you very good data, how people are actually moving around. It doesn't matter if they are in the car or if they are using bicycle or they are using public transportation. You get very good understanding how people are moving around. Of course, it's anonymous. It's not like we are following who is moving and so on, but it's giving very good big data for different analysis. And then also they used the ticketing system data, for example, the statistics from the ticketing system, also the spatial planning data to understand which areas in the city are developing fast and need to be better connected, etc., etc. It was about 30 different data sets on the top of each other that we had for the modeling of the transportation network. So it's one of the examples how important it is to have data, because otherwise you have citizens all the time that I need more kind of departures from my bus stop. But if it's just one person who is shouting very loud, then you shouldn't listen to it, because the data is showing you where people are actually going and from which bus stops they are actually going. So that's really important to know. So those are a couple of examples, and also what we are really highlighting, it's safety in case of traffic. And in case of safety, also digitalization, it's giving very good results. For example, we have here a representative of Bergman Technologies company also. And they are producing those smart pedestrian crosswalks, so which are in the future, if you have connected vehicles on the street, it's possible to have the infrastructure and connected vehicle connection, and the cars will start to stop automatically if they have the dangerous situation ahead. Right now, it's already connected to the 5G network, so it's really giving very good basis to development. So it's a very short period of time. I cannot open too many use cases here, but I just encourage that if you are representatives of cities, please go for the innovation and try to use the technology in favor of your citizens, in favor of improving the situation in the cities. And if you are the provider of technological solutions, please find your way to the cities and really speak to them and try to have this kind of collaboration which is mutually beneficial. So thank you so much for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep the microphone. Can I ask you to sit here and just keep the microphone, and we try to get, I'm sure we can get a good discussion going. Thank you all for presenting from your point of view. I'm trying to I think before I take questions, I have two things. One is really the digital, and it came to me in the beginning of the presentation, the digital and the physical, you know, and the two first presentations, Yves, you show that, you know, we have to build the tunnels and invest and, you know, things like that. And then you say, okay, the digital is gonna, okay. And then Manjunath, just the opposite. Okay, it's already there, you know, the physical is a given, and now we'll do something with the digital. And you know, that tension, I'm interested in that, whether you can say something about that, because it's also short-term, long-term. The physical takes a lot of time to plan. It's there, you cannot just change it. The digital is faster, more agile, but if the physical doesn't follow. So I don't know who wants to start first about this kind of, I don't know.
Maybe I can
Raimond.
start.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
What is important that you know which are actual challenges what you have ahead, and then you have to choose. If it's infrastructure, you have to change. If it's the digital solution, you have to choose for. So it's really dependent on the actual situation what you have. And I would like to say that without physical space, it's not possible to develop the cities. But you have to do it in a very smart way, and you have to analyze before going for physical stuff or digital stuff. So we are not always saying in Estonia that please use only technology and try to solve all the problems, but you need to understand what is your problem behind.
And maybe Jaideep, you know, basically, I mean, yes, there is a physical constraint. We do have roads, we do have buildings. You cannot just, okay, but you could use the same space much more intelligently, right? With the proper data, with the
Absolutely. And in fact, even our light electric vehicles, by the way, I mean, they are internet connected vehicles that provide data for cities, right? They are distributed sensor networks. We are now equipping our vehicles with their own camera sensors, vision sensors, right, to provide environmental monitoring data to cities around like traffic patterns, road issues. You know, why not create high definition maps with these distributed camera sensors, air pollution monitoring, noise pollution monitoring, right? There's a whole range of opportunities, right? And we like to think of it as like a smartphone on wheels, right? We follow the smartphone development cycle. Like every 6 months, there's a new version with new features, not, you know, the car development cycle, which is 5 years, right? So there's definitely this opportunity, but we need to use data to validate that we're able to drive this efficiency gain, right?
And maybe Manzoor, you know, I mean, so it's not just the car, it's the environment of the car.
Yeah, exactly. So while there were these answers, I've been in similar meetings with the different stakeholders about it. I'm not sure if there is a clear-cut and easy answer to this question. So it all boils down to those stakeholders, of which I have highlighted a few. There should be a new ecosystem. And this ecosystem is going to involve the technology providers with the road infrastructure operators, with the road infrastructure providers, the OEMs, and then they have to come together to work on a solution together. So for me, the main challenge is this ecosystem, and then comes the rest. And that is what is my outcome of the discussions that I've had across the different countries.
I don't know. Manjunath first or Yves, either one.
Yeah. So personally, I believe infrastructure, any solution to a problem, changing infrastructure should be the last one. So I previously used to work for a company, Broadcom, which manufactures the most chips. So our CEO gave us a mandate. All your changes should be software, and the last should be the hardware. While you come out to the world where everybody is trying to solve the city's challenge using more infrastructure. And how do you solve a congestion? Get electric mobility. And sometimes I wonder, like, you know, why are we investing so much in autonomous vehicle to build the infrastructure, to build the so many sensors, to really create an ecosystem, while why are we not using the existing ecosystem, making more livable cities? So yeah, so that's where we believe that, you know, we need to take small steps to change the mindset of the people, use technology to help people improve their day tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow, rather than a vision which might not be realized when I'm alive. So that's what we personally believe.
Yeah, actually, we try to address multiple aspects with our project. I mean, you could come up with a simple example as a home office. This will solve many problems and distribute it. But in our case, I mean, we build an additional infrastructure because we believe that in some points we come really to a limit. And then there is a question, do you want to build the same or do you want to build something new? We also try to address autonomous vehicle because we have a separated line which has less complexity, no humans, for example, in the tunnel. And we address, of course, also digital data and digitalization because we want to bring up the goods at the specific time when the distribution trucks in the city are coming to the ramps for getting loaded. And if you can really estimate that that times point, you need a lot of, need much less space in the upstairs. I think we addressed several of these points with the project.
I mean, just to make the link with, that's what I call deep efficiency. You really align the infrastructure potential with, you know, the usage and the demand and all that in, you know, but so maybe second round and then I open question. My second question, I think it's more, so there is technology and then there is, we call it institutions or governance or rules or, you know, somebody decides or doesn't decide, okay? And that interface, you know, is a challenging interface. And it became clear, at least to us in IGLUS, and the word hasn't been used at all, public-private partnerships. That interface, you know, and it was very clear, you know, Jaideep, and we help the government take better decisions because we deliver data that they can decide upon. And I mean, we come from the university, we come from all this debate, you know, government and private sector, they cannot work with each other, but we can no longer afford this in the current system, right? I start with, or with without PPP, we cannot move ahead, or do I?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, especially when we have smaller cities, for example. Then they don't have in-house capacity to actually take care of all the needed data analytics or whatever. So if you are not choosing to work with companies, you are actually not making the best decisions. So for best decision making, you need to involve specified companies who are really helping you to find out which are the best solutions and best answers to different questions. So that's exactly what's going on in Estonia, because we are a small country with not so huge cities. So that's why we are really intending to work hand in hand with universities, with companies, so et cetera, et cetera. That's really important.
So maybe, Jaideep, I mean, you've been in Silicon Valley, which is a little bit government bashing from time to time, you know, but the private sector also needs government to deploy it.
Hands down. And especially when we talk about mobility, right, and future mobility, right, we also talk about urban planning and what we want our cities to become in the future. So actually there's a lot of alignment with the objectives of the government, the objectives of city planners, and the objectives of mobility companies, right? We are trying to achieve the same goals, and it's on us actually to demonstrate how we support those objectives with data, with reference cases. Let's get a pilot, let's prove it, and then let's expand it and take it to the next level. So I mean, that's what we've been doing here in the region, right? The cities have not been built for scooters. Right? There's no infrastructure for it here in the Middle East either. There's no precedent for it, right? But I think governments are being very receptive to it, and all over the world, you're seeing like quite a dramatic adoption of or mindset shift away from cars to, you know, this multimodal living. So we have to give credit where it's due. I think governments are moving quite quickly in partnership.
Especially local governments.
Especially local governments in partnership with these mobility companies.
And Manjunath, I mean, you also you basically help public transport, right?
Yeah, true. So I can give you an example. So when I was talking to one of the public transit agencies in India, I told them you get this enormous data, and they asked me like, what do I do with the data? So like there, then we told them, yeah, that's when we decided, okay, now we collect data, we need to give them choices. Like basically, these are your 3 decisions, and this will improve your revenue, optimize operations, or increase users. So they want KPIs. So data should deliver KPIs for me. That's it. So you give me data where I make a choice and I do it. So that's where we've been working on not just collecting data, but helping them, giving them choices of what should they choose and what do they get if they take these choices.
And Yves, you know, I mean, I think it's interesting. Your example is interesting. You basically say it's private companies, it's private financing, it's no government money, but we have the government issue the legislation that helps us do the, you know.
Yeah, at the end we need planning security, and especially in Switzerland we have a very federal system, so it's even the question who decide what. So for example, who decide where is a corridor, within that corridor the line will be existing, and then who decide where the hub locations are, which might be also a bit more polluting at that specific point at that area. So we have to be very clear about this point before investing into such a multi-billion project, and for that we need the government. We also need the government for clarify things when there are multiple infrastructures. So for example, the Swiss railway, and we are on the ground, what we do, what has priority, and so on. So we really need the support of the government. Yeah.
And now, Manzoor, you're the academic here. So you look at all this.
And this guy with me. Yeah. So I wanted to give 2 examples. One is the adoption of 5G for autonomous mobility or autonomous vehicle. That was a decision which was long held with the European Union. You might be knowing it. And they wanted to make a decision if they should go with DSRC for this Wi-Fi solution or the 5G. They could not decide because US had the infrastructure for Wi-Fi, though technologically Wi-Fi solution was not better than 5G, but since they had infrastructure, they did not want to have additional infrastructure. Therefore, these big companies were having those solutions supported by that infrastructure. Then European Union had to invest a lot by partnering with the public or the OEMs and others to create a strategy, study if 5G is the right solution or not. When they decided, now there are solutions from OEMs, from network providers, that this is our 5G deployment strategy in Europe, and now then China follows. So there is limit, of course. It cannot be, you cannot just stand without this, as a company, you cannot just decide and go with it. So at different level, you have different strategies. So of course, there is a limit, and there must be public-private partnership. And the most important thing which you highlighted is who owns what. Like you have this digital infrastructure. Mobile operator is providing you the communication bit pipe. The data is generated somewhere and is to go somewhere. Sensor providers have their backends. They have their own solutions there. So who owns what? At the end, there is this one thing of smart mobility, but multiple stakeholders, data going, multiple enablers. Authority should be one of the entity who should give the lead in this case. So I would say that even if you don't want, you have to have public partnership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's about data,
data
governance. And
yeah, exactly.
So I don't want to monopolize, but I think we already had a very good discussion. So I'll take questions, remarks from the floor, and then maybe 2, 3, 4, and then go back to the panel, whoever wants to answer a point. Who wants to start? Don't be shy. I mean, you, please, microphone. Just present yourself briefly so we know who you are.
Yes, I am Talal. I am an urban planner from RAG government. I am wondering how you could convince a local government with such a type of urban mobility. Let's say, Mr. You spoke about the public, the e-scooter, or because I know it's even harder to speak about pedestrians. How about scooters here?
Okay, maybe any other? Well, let's take a few. By the way, Talal is another of our alumni of IGLUS.
Umut. My name is Umut, coordinating the IGLUS program. I have 2 questions, one for Dr. Yves and one for the Mr. Deputy Mayor. For Dr. Yves, I mean, the project is a very large scale and nationwide project. And for such projects, I mean, you first think of central governments, and it's a little bit atypical. I mean, it's a private sector-led project. I mean, who came up with the idea, and who's leading this? I mean, among all these private companies we saw, I mean, in that slide, that is one question. And for the Mr. Mayor, Professor Matthias talked about PPPs, and for our executive master program, we used to visit 13 cities from around the world, different continents, and what we have seen is that, you know, cities, local governments, they are a lot under pressure in terms of financing, unlimited needs. People want metro, people want parks, things like that. I mean, do you have, can you name some innovative approaches in terms of financing? I mean, it can be private sector, or I don't know, it can be the public itself, citizens itself. So those are the questions, yeah.
Okay, any other before I turn to the, yeah, please.
I'd like to ask. All right, my name is Andrus Kuric from Tartu Science Park from Estonia. I have a question to all panel about potential future. Today, mobility is a huge trend, right? So, but as a citizen, I would like to have more, let's say, user-friendly solutions. For example, even in very compact city as Tartu, we have many service providers. So I need to have many different apps, many different solutions. And it's not convenient for me, even not convenient for tourists. So who could solve this problem, and how? What do you think about that? Thank you.
Okay, good. I think we have, let's keep that last one for the fragmentation of the whole thing. So I don't know, Jaideep, I think you were challenged by Talal because, and Jaideep is also in Ras Al Khaimah, you may know. So he knows exactly your situation.
I don't know. Do you know the answer? I'm also searching. Look, it's an ongoing process. I think with more precedent, it becomes easier. Like governments typically are more risk averse, right? You know, they have their own decision-making process, which requires a lot of people to sign off on something new, on a change, right? So our process has been, you know, understand the market landscape in the city. There might be several different stakeholders, you know, is it a transport agency, is it a municipality, is it road and safety, is it police? They all have an opinion, right? Try to identify evangelists, right, to who believe in what you're doing, because someone needs to stick their neck out, and then try to bring people across the line that, you know, there's a need for this, it supports your goals as a city, and you know, parrot back, you know, how it supports their goals, and of course, this is how it can work. These are the best practices. This is how to design a pilot program. This is where to do it. This is how to measure success of the pilot, and accordingly, you know, shape long-form regulations. Don't try to over-regulate from day one because you've not experienced it. You don't know what you're getting into. Better to do a light pilot and learn from it. That's generally the process that we followed, and we're still learning as well. Yes, so we're a Middle East focused platform, and yes, so we started the program first in Abu Dhabi, the last company. That was the first city to do shared e-scooters in the region. Then we introduced it to Ras Al Khaimah. If you're there, it's exclusive with FENIX. Yes, more so. Abu Dhabi, not as much. We can talk offline, right? But today we're in 12 cities in the region, 5 countries, most of the Gulf and in Turkey.
Yves, where is the pain point really? I don't know.
The pain point from our project.
Yeah. I mean, what Umut? I mean, who has such pain or such an opportunity to see that things move?
No, I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? Of course, this project I could show you is rather fancy. It's also unique. There are other projects worldwide, but I think they're not as progressed as we are. And in such a case, I can also probably a little bit address the question from Talal, because you should focus on the people who might support it and where you have a use case. And then the people see, oh, they can do it, so maybe we can do it as well. So I'm not so familiar with Emirates, but maybe Marina is a nice area to start, because there they have a little bit not so much cars, or maybe you can, when you reuse the Expo infrastructure, you can use it. You should just start somewhere, right? And the same was with Cargo Souterrain. I mean, you have to focus on the one, and I think at first it was an association. And the very first one was the Swiss Post, who introduced this idea, and they gain more and more supporters as from the Zurich airport, who has a concrete difficulty in the long run, which we want to address and anticipate. And I think this is just go step by step. And for this law process, we received the law. This was a long discussions with interest groups, and at the end, I think we had one of the best ever acceptance over all possible interest groups on that. But this takes a lot of time, and I think if you go back in history, I would assume about 10 years, you could say, is the story already now. Yeah.
And maybe if I can add, I mean, from my Swiss experience, the country is totally congested. People would debate whether it's overpopulated or not, but at least it is very, very congested. So Swiss Post cannot deliver on time because simply their trucks are stuck in traffic. The food retailers cannot fill their shops because the trucks cannot reach their destination. So there is a pain point there that you have to do something about it.
So we assume that there will be 10 million people in Switzerland living, which is significantly more than now, and we will try to be a solution for that increase of population and the demand of that.
Yeah. Okay, and Raimond, the question about the financing, and then maybe you can also link to your colleague's question.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. And I believe that most of the cities in the world have actually limited budgets for different activities. That's true. And that's why, from the company's point of view, you have to offer the pain-killing solutions, which are really actual pains for the city. Because if you are offering nice-to-have solutions, then the cities are starting, I don't know whether I need it or I don't need it, whatever. Some cities are going also for nice-to-have solutions, because to have kind of maybe better position in case of selling the city or something like that. Branding, yes, branding solutions. So that might be possible also, but pain-killing solutions are definitely the most easier to sell from company's point of view. If it's coming to infrastructure, it's of course much more different, but because it's infrastructure solutions are more expensive. But if you are going for service-based solutions, then it's much more easier, because normally you are offering kind of monthly fees or something like that, which are much more acceptable for the city also. So we have a few solutions how you could actually approach the city.
And maybe just if somebody of you wants to answer the question you pose, and I reframe a little bit. I mean,
yeah, exactly. The problem what Andrus was actually pointing out, it's in many cities in the world also. And if you are going to huge cities, you have more and more applications that you have to download in your mobile phone. But what the world has been speaking about, it's mobility as a service solution that probably could help in this case also, that you have less and less applications, different applications, but you have one application that is really giving you access to different service providers. I haven't seen too many successful mobility as a service solutions so far, but I believe that it will appear not too far in the future, but in the nearest future. So in Estonian terms, for example, I believe that we should have mobility as a service solution for all the state, not only for some certain cities, but for all the country. That you should have one solution for all the country. Yeah, but it's not so easy to agree on the standards.
Yeah. And that creates, maybe we can conclude with it, this creates the need for government to set the standards or to make, I mean, I think what you were referring, somebody needs to make a decision. It's nice to have a startup culture and a lot of things, and you can even brand yourself, we're a very innovative something, but at the end, it needs to decisions and
it's not about technology.
The policy and the leadership.
Okay, I don't know. Any other? We can have a second round, or aperitif is waiting, or I don't know. But then maybe, I don't know, each of you a short conclusion, but just to provoke a discussion. You know, I mean, we have no representative of the car industry on the panel. Okay, so it's easy. It's always easy to do car bashing. And there are a lot of very good arguments against the car, at least in the city, okay? But what do we do with the car? I mean, this is a huge industry. It's a lot of jobs. And where do we still need it? I don't know. Any of you?
I may jump in. The thing is, with this paradigm shift that we will be experiencing soon, I'm not sure if it's not going to change the models, the business models which are already existing, the car sharing model, the ride sharing model. Those would definitely be hit a lot by the autonomous driving in itself. For instance, you would have the new car sharing business models, because most of it is expected that the autonomous driving would basically be ride sharing or car sharing, right? So there is no personalization anymore of the car that I have. So I just get dropped somewhere, car parks itself, or it decides. You would have solutions like the app where it would already, based on your trajectory from point A to point B, it gives you a multimodal mobility. From A to B is this model of the mobility available to you, from B to C is this model of the mobility available to you, and the reservation is to be done like automatically. And in this case, again, the main question is this leadership should be provided by the authorities where those all models and solutions be integrated.
But, okay, no, not for you, but so is this then still the car? You know, I mean, yes? I mean, the car as we knew it, where people identify and we have
personalization,
and, you know, and all that. Or is it just a vehicle that moves people like trottinettes or any... I don't know, Jaideep or anybody.
Okay, I mean, of course I have my own tension with the car, but I own a car, right? And I think most people own cars because
you have to.
Yes, you have to, and you know the retail model. You pay up front, you get a bundle of trips, right? It's much more affordable to own a car than to take an Uber everywhere today, right? And I mean, I worked in ride-hailing. We couldn't. There's a floor on the price. Right, I think that's the beauty of this vehicle is it does everything for you as a bundle, and you know there will be some reduction with new business models, maybe more shared, maybe more subscription, but I don't see retail disappearing anytime soon.
Yves?
Yeah. I never owned a car. I always had the luck to live in a city where the public transportation is outstanding, as for example in Tokyo or in Zurich. And I think this should be the way. I mean, the product, the public product, must just be better than the private car. And to make a little bit of claim of the Zurich airport, we can access the Zurich airport to the city center within 10 minutes by train. And no car has a chance against that speed. So everybody will use it. And about the industry, which of course this might be a disruptive sense, but all the vehicles I just showed before, somebody need to build them. These green dots we had on the yeah.
Yes, you and then Raimond, and then we conclude.
It's a choice, right? It boils down to consumer's choice. For example, when I was speaking to another PTO, I was promoting public transit, and he asked me, "How did you come here?" I had used a car, so he asked me like, "Why you are promoting public transit, but you have come in a car?" So it boils down how each technology, each companies are pushing into people's minds. You know, like Switzerland is culturally, they believe in public transit. People, the first choice automatically comes to the public transit. So that way, it boils down to not technology, like how well the technology is marketed and how well people believe it to be a pain point or believe it to be something that they really need it. So it's, at the end, it's going to boil down to how well each technology is going to be marketed and how well people are going to receive it.
Raimond, you have the last word. Is Tartu going to be a car-free city, and when?
Yeah, I would like to start from a little bit higher. I start first from the world point of view and then go back to Tartu. So from the world point of view, we have really hot climate change issues right now in the world, and I think it's a good basis also for different changes in the city traffics because the regulations are coming sooner or later, but they are coming. So that's why also we have to change the traffic in cities. And Tartu also has ambitious climate plans. So we are trying to, let's say, replace cars, let's say step by step, with bicycles, with public transportation, etc., etc. Tartu is also a very compact city. Walking is important in Tartu also. We have 50% of all the movements every day made, it's by walking. So it's a very compact city. We have 7 kilometers from one side of the city to the other, so not too much. So it's easy to walk. And really, we are redesigning our streets to be more bicycle friendly. So it's not like having more infrastructure, but to redesign the infrastructure. That's also really important. And it's possible to do it here also. It's not so... It's not such a big investment. You just need to, let's say, make the decision that we will go for it.
Political will to take out
exactly,
one lane.
That's exactly, yeah. Let's get the one lane off from the cars and have it for bicycles, for example. Here we have like 8 lanes sometimes, so it's not too difficult to make it.
So my concluding, anecdote. I'm from Geneva, Switzerland. So during COVID, much less traffic. Yeah. So the city just took a lane off, and put some flower pots there. Yeah. And it stayed like this.
You're right, because last year in March, we actually achieved the aim what we have set for 10 years. So car traffic was decreased by 40%. That was very easy to happen.
Okay, on that note, I would like to thank you very much for very interesting presentations and discussions and your questions. And as always, we are very thankful for being hosted here. So thanks again, and I give it back to Dante.
Thank you very much, Professor Finger, for these remarks. So we went through Tartu, we went through Dubai, Zurich, India. Now it's time to enjoy some Swiss hospitality. So we have a networking reception on the rooftop, and you're all welcome to come, have a drink, have some bites to eat, and network, and enjoy yourselves on our beautiful rooftop. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.